Alrighty.
Yeah.
So, this is like a introduction to the open focus meditation,
Meditation.
and the main thing here is that we'll use the meditation to stimulate an upward movement of energy,
Mm-hmm.
mobilize the energy that we've built in our chakras through doing
Right.
all the meditations, but maybe the kinjas specifically as well. And then, but then how do we raise that energy up to stimulate an opening of the third eye?
Right. So it's, there are a number of ways to do it. Open focus is a pretty broad territory again. We can, just like the burning meditation is broad, and then there are ways to specifically sort of tune it in to whatever it is that you're doing. The same thing goes along with this. So open focus in general means that there are two different types of focus, right? When we say focus, it's convergent focus and divergent focus. So convergent means it comes together, right? Converges into a single point. So that's when we're focusing on a very small thing, right? Or a specific aspect of something. And divergent is when we let our focus sort of spread out to, encompass a much broader state. It's still focus, it's still awareness, right? But it's like the two different, two sides of the same coin, right? So they do work together, and they do work better when you put them together. It's like most people, they do some sort of divergent focus, kind of like an open focus, but it's not, let's say, that I've known, that it's not in a way that, let's say, at least in the Asian camps, that they tend to use it, right? So they're using it in the most abstract way, which is to bring the results of putting focus on the space around you or around something or through something, right? It's on the empty space, supposedly empty, right? We know there's energy there too. So it's like, so that makes your mind sort of expand and focus on something that maybe at first glance it's not used to perceiving. So we train our focus on that. And since it's the majority, their explanation of it is, since the physical is the minority of everything, that why would you only put your focus on the smallest aspect of everything? And so, this open focus brings your awareness to the maximum, territory that occupies our universe or our reality or whatever it is. So, and that's sort of their logic for doing it, other than the fact that it produces really good results. So, but that's how they conceptualize it anyway. And that's what we're going to do.
What result does it produce for them?
It puts more awareness, and again, another axiom of theirs is, where the mind goes, the chi flows, right? So, whatever is capturing your awareness at the time, at least a portion of your energy is moving to make a connection with that thing, right? We can't have an awareness of something if we don't have energy that's reaching out to it and making a connection with it. It's, that makes some kind of sense, right? So they're just looking at it from that standpoint. And if I'm putting my awareness on the empty space around me, or on the empty space around an energy center, as opposed to just the physical location where the energy center is kind of located, then it's going to give my attention the ability to entrain to whatever it is I'm trying to become aware of. If it's a physical location, like if I'm being aware of, let's say, my right index finger, most people are not thinking about their right index finger or even sensing it until I said the words. And as soon as I said the words, everybody feels their right index finger. Is it cold? Is it warm? Is it tingling? Is it, do I have a little cut there that's bothering me? And until I mentioned it, nobody was really noticing it. So it's it's that same kind of idea. If I am trying to engage in the space or spirit or energy or whatever it is, it would only make sense that I would put more attention there. If I wanted to engage in the game of baseball, I would put more attention on all the aspects of baseball, right? So it's the same sort of logic train that goes along with that. So I'm going to bring my awareness and to that space, and then using certain vocabulary, open-ended, like, can you feel, this empty space? Can you feel the energy in that space? Can you sense the volume of it? Can you, all that type of language, so that it's very sort of, everything is sort of expanding and not sort of, crunched in together. So we're trying to bring our attention more to the wave or the resonance of it, and less of the particle or the physicality of it, of whatever we're concentrating on. But again, it's two sides of the same coin, right? One is the emptiness, and one is the particle, the physical, part of that exercise, whatever you're doing. So, because we're working with the body, that's the physical part. So the mind is a little more of that, empty, not empty, but didn't mean to say that. It's that space that's not visible, let's say, and probably a stronger connection to the rest of this space around me. That we just use this technique to sort of, get a better feel for that, and sort of expand our awareness of it. So, and it doesn't take, I want to be really clear about this part. It doesn't take, you don't have to be good at visualizing for this, because it's like, I'm not saying visualize this energy center, or imagine this in this place, or whatever. It's like, no, it's bring your awareness to that. Just like, I didn't have to coach you on, what does he mean, bring my awareness to my right index finger? It's like, as soon as you have a target, you're sensing it, right? So you're just bringing your awareness to that place to bring up the sensations in that place. It's the same thing. So as soon as I say, bring your awareness to this energy center or that energy center, your mind automatically sort of looks for it. And if you don't have an idea of where that is, just take your finger and touch that place. Sorry, I didn't mean to smash the mic, but it's like, touch that place. If you don't know where your solar plexus are, you put a physical finger there, and give yourself a sensation. And then when you close your eyes, it's like, oh, bring your awareness to the third energy center. Boom, you know where that is, and you imagine or bring your awareness to that spot, and there'll be a sensation there for you. So, and so it's really pretty much that easy. I mean, we'll walk through it, and we're gonna do a guided meditation for that anyway, so that people can just experience it and walk through it, very casually, without having to really pace yourself or whatever. We'll do the pacing for you. It's a nice entryway to get in and be used to doing this, because I think most people find it extremely enjoyable, because the focus is more broad and not so pinpoint. And it does induce an extremely coherent state of relaxation, and obviously coherence between the brain and the heart, which is what we're always trying to do. And a lot of times when we go to open focus techniques, it automatically syncs. And the longer you stay in that, obviously, the better. We tend to perform better in that way, and there's plenty of science to back that up. But it's one of the few things that we know that, without people really trying to do anything other than bring their awareness to those areas, that they automatically sort of go into a coherence between the heart and the brain. It's pretty profound, actually. It's a big clue as to how to get a lot of these things done in a more efficient way. Because when we have that coherence between those two areas, things naturally flow easier. There's, you have more precision and detail with less stress mentally or physically to be able to do that. You're not forcing it anymore. You're just letting it flow. And that's a really nice state to be in. So that flow state is where we lose track of time, and we're just consumed by what we're doing, and we're in it, but we're not thinking about it. Right? So it's not the analysis part, right? We're not actually dissecting it and thinking all through all these little intricate pieces, right? It's just the action that we're taking and being enveloped in that form of whatever it is that we're doing at the time. So that's what that coherence brings to us in that way. So I think once people try it, they're going to find, even on the first try, it's pretty profound, and really will give them a nice sense of that alpha state, and sometimes really going down even into theta if they hold it long enough. So.
And when we go through the energy centers from bottom to top, we're mobilizing that energy that a lot of traditions would call like Kundalini energy.
Yeah, we can think of it that way, because basically it just means that the energy that is sort of not being utilized in the best way. I tend to think of it as being more stagnant, or things that have been stuck in those territories. It's easier to get stuck in those lower territories than it is, the heart's kind of in the middle. So from that point up, things tend to take a little bit of a higher vibration. So it's not as easy to, get those things stagnant. And but the lower ones, yeah, it's pretty easy to do. So we're sort of unsticking those areas, and from the unsticking of that, it mobilizes the energy, and then it's directed through that central channel up through, right? So it's definitely a way to do that, and but it's not a force thing. You're not trying to push it at this point.
Just by bringing your awareness to them sequentially,
it will already start doing that. Yeah, and in fact, it's another thing that we can imbibe during the day, right? It's like a minute of just bringing your attention to a certain area and just holding it there without doing anything else. It's like, excuse me, that's a good way to chip away at that stagnation, to kind of move it. It's like, again, there's so many metaphors we could use that. My teacher always said it was like polishing a mirror, that you were kind of reflecting the sun and trying to get somebody's attention. So it's like, the more you shine up that mirror, the clearer your signal, right? So otherwise it's just being, it's just one more. How do you focus on one spot that's shining off the ocean? It's like, there's just millions of them, right? How do you single one out? Well, you single out the one that's unusual from the others, or brighter. So that's sort of the idea, to grab that attention. Also awareness, right? To grab that awareness, it's like mobilizing that energy and having it, free flowing again, makes us sort of shiny mirrors, and we can reflect, the light in a much more clear and brilliant way, much more powerful way. So, but it doesn't take any other forceful action on your part other than doing it. But that's not really force. It's literally as simple as bringing your awareness to a certain spot and then working sequentially up, right? Or doing one spot. Let's say you do the first center, for the first minute of your day. Then the next time you get a minute, you're doing the second one, and and so on and so forth. And it's a nice way to start and kind of chip away at it a little bit at a time. You don't have to make it these epic, 3-hour sessions of trying to move the lower 3 chakras or the lower 3 energy centers to push it up. That's kind of a recipe for disaster on the other side. I mean, those are the people that accidentally trip into something and, have these, spontaneous Kundalini experiences, if you want to call it that. I mean, that's sort of in one context, right? So, but it's not, if they're not trained to do it, it can be pretty cathartic and sometimes really devastating for them. So, so I wouldn't suggest doing that, but, doing it little bits at a time, you can be sure that even if you did that for, a long period of time and just did that 1 minute, several times a day to hit all of them, I don't know how long it would be, but eventually if you kept doing that, you would end up with an opening, with that energy all sort of rushing up and moving through because it was released. And hopefully your experience of doing it little by little will sort of prepare your body for that, prepare your mind for that too.
And now we're going to be using it specifically for seeing with this version of this open focus guided meditation. But would you say that doing this exercise, whether it's the meditation itself or imbibing throughout the day, would facilitate any of the other things that we focus on and that we do?
Sure. I mean, there's nothing that this won't touch on in a positive way.
Okay.
Absolutely nothing.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a I would call it as far as like, let's say the burning in general is for dissipating stagnant things and burning off things that are bothering us, stress, mental fatigue, all of that, right?
Yeah.
This is probably the equivalent of that in creating things. So it's that broad, but it could be made into very specific practices that would facilitate that. In this case, seeing, right? But it can be used in everything else that we do.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
And in this, the guided meditation, when you get to the sixth energy center or the third eye, we're going to be placing a symbol or an image in that center to stimulate it in a specific way, in this case for seeing energy.
Right.
So how does that
Sure.
Actually?
Yeah, sure. So, I think it comes down to, in essence, that the third eye, is sort of the portal into your subconscious in a way. It's, we also say the subconscious is the operating system with God or the universe or whatever. So, so a lot of techniques that in every tradition, in every esoteric tradition, has to do with getting messages from and messages into the subconscious as we know it, right? Or as we've defined it. So how does that work? I mean, there's just many, many, many techniques to try to do that. A lot of esoteric techniques to try to just get whatever it is that you've conceived of or you're trying to create or take down, into that subconscious so that it's constantly being worked on, right? So it's constantly, energy is being, brought to that program and cycled through it and producing phenomena for you to act on in the this material reality. So and so using a symbol in that, well, we know the subconscious works in symbols, right? It doesn't normally work in verbal language, or if it does, it's the language that it's using is symbolic as well, right? So it's sounds and segments of sounds. It's a whole big territory to go through. But just know that it works in symbolism. So any symbol that you would put in an energy center is going to have that energy feeding through it, and so that becomes like that becomes the lens or the focal point of that energy moving through it. So think of your energy center as being like the lamp in an old movie projector. And, the image that you put in there is the slide that you're going to, project onto the wall into your physical reality, right? You're going to put it on the wall in your room. So, when we do that, I mean, any slide that we would put in front of it is going to, give us a different image on the wall, right? So if it's just a green gel, it's going to look green on the wall. If we put a red one in, it's going to look red, right? So the energy source itself is more or less undifferentiated to some degree. And, but it's, being projected through this lens. And so the symbol that we put in the different chakras ends up being, or the different energy centers becomes, the lens at which that's being projected into this place.
Would you say that we're doing that constantly
Mm-hmm.
in an unconscious way.
Sure.
Like
Yeah.
the images, the movies that we play in our mind become the slides that inhabit those different energy centers that
And
are then projected into our world through
sure. But everything, not just the movies that we play in our minds, but the images, the words that we use, all of those things are lenses. They're all slides that we're using, that our energy is being projected through at any given time.
Right.
That's why I'm so I try to be so precise with my wording, because it's so important to let your energy flow through the words that you actually mean.
Mm-hmm.
In the context of whatever you're saying.
Right.
I'm not a big fan of slang and things like that, or bad meaning good, and
Right.
those types of things
Yeah,
that are
yeah.
just
Sure.
neutralizes everything. It's like, okay, nobody knows what anybody, you're not projecting anything anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
so
So this is kind of like that twofold process of burning off the things that we don't want through burning meditation or dragon meditation, or just clearing those dirty or chaotic or unconscious slides that we've kind of placed within our energy centers unconsciously or within our subconscious, let's say. And then, using this meditation, we're consciously putting something there that we want to project into our experience. Or
right.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, you're not going to remember. I don't think you'll remember this. It's like when there was a time when people, I mean, even before my time as a kid, right? But people would do these, they'd go to people's houses and they'd look at slides of their vacation or whatever. So everybody had different projectors, and, but every now and then the cartridge would sort of jostle, and maybe two slides would go into one space, right? And so the light would go through that, and it'd be just a jumble, a massive, like you can kind of pick it out, but not really pick it out. And it's like, oh, it's like somebody would pull one of the slides out and put it in an empty slot and ready for the next one. And then you could see clearly that image. And I feel like that's the same thing when we're bringing our awareness to those centers prior to doing any slides or any lenses. We're helping to mobilize it and clear out any debris that might be there, residual stuff, right? And so that when we put our image there, it's projecting clearly through it, and has enough strength. We've cleaned off the bulb, and we've and these other centers, as we mobilize that energy, just gives it more power, right? Gives it more strength. So now we have a stronger bulb, and it gives us more distance and more clarity, right? So we used to do, as kids, we used to grab those slides, and we thought it was cool to shine the old flashlights weren't like the military grade flashlights that everybody carries around now, where they're like, you could see them for 12 miles away or whatever. It was just the old dull flashlights, right? And we'd shine it on there. It was sort of like we'd have to squint on the wall to see if it was, because there wasn't enough power in it to really project a clear image. And I feel like that's what most of us are working on at the time is, there's not enough energy to go through it. It's too weak to really project through that. And in some reasons, in some situations, thank God, it's not stronger.
Yeah.
But then there's the gels that are jammed together, and there's so it's confused, and we can't really figure out what's going on. It's chaos, and the situation's chaotic, and it can really be a mess. So, but it's a nice way to sort of frame that stuff out in your mind too, because it's always like anytime I know this is a side, but like anytime something's not going right, it's like I'm just stepping back for a second and going, I mean, if it's not something you have to immediately tend to, I'm just stepping back for a second. What's really going on here? Where's the confusion? What's happening here?
How do you figure that out?
I just look for the territory in which it's producing its effect. So if it's a financial chaos, I'm looking at the territories that I use to produce finance. I'm looking at the territories that if it's something physically with my health, I'm looking at the territories around the territory that it would be associated with energetically, and trying to straighten that out. I saying things that are causing this to sort of conflict, or, am I confused in some way about that? I mean, a lot of this stuff does come from confusion. And, so I'm really trying to get a better handle on it when something starts to go wrong. I'm not just immediately reacting, because you could just make it worse. And a lot of times we do, right? Just by hyper reacting to a situation instead of stepping back and saying, oh, okay, let's let's take 5 minutes, see what's going on here, see if I can articulate it clearly, and then take the first step in rectifying the situation. And then do it, right? You have that 5-second rule where, make a different decision and act on it within 5 seconds, and, see if it'll right the ship, so to speak. And if it does, great, you're onto something. And then you just keep moving in that direction, keep doing more of the same. Yeah. So nice and simple. But, a symbol's worth 1,000 words, and that's why we use a symbol instead of a statement. Right? I don't want to have a dissertation going on in that energy center. It's not efficient, right? So one picture is 1,000 words. So I use, with a third eye, I'm going to use, we'll give one image that's just a line drawing that would represent it in that way of what you're trying to achieve, right? But there are all kinds of ways to do this, and I've done this many times with people. I mean, we just have so many resources now that I never had when, I mean, it's the internet, right? It's like, sorry, I grew up before the internet, but so I'm still fascinated by it. It's like Google Images, man, is whatever you think of Google. I mean, the list of images that they have there for things like this, it's just like, put in, whatever it would be, if it's nature, images of auras around animals or plants, images, auras around people. You're going to get Alex Gray's stuff, and probably, there are a bunch of artists in South America that do that stuff from ayahuasca ceremonies, and, and it gives you that kaleidoscopic sort of view, and as best they can represent energy of colors around different plants and animals. Those are perfect. Use whatever one really grabs you in a way. Just view them, and just like, there'll be something that you just go like, whoa, that's really cool. Or, does it really look like that? Even if there's a question like that, it's okay. You don't have to be married to that. It's just, the symbol, the image that's a symbol that says, this is what I'm looking for. This is what I'm looking to achieve. Not the exact thing. It's the idea of it. Right? I'm trying to achieve being able to see this, and that's it. So you would place that in that center. In this case, the third eye center, which isn't here, right? But it's in the back. So the pineal gland is back there, not so much not where everybody thinks it is, in the center of the head, behind the this part of your forehead. That's just the territory that goes straight through to where it is, but it's in the back of the brain, right? In the front, direct in line with the eyes, is the pituitary gland, which is another center itself. So we don't want to confuse those too much. They work together, but you don't want to confuse them. So it's this one, the sixth one in the back, that we're using as that.
That's where we'll place center. The image.
Yeah, that's where you place the image. And just again, if it's a beautiful image, print it out, or just have it, save it to your computer or your phone or whatever, and look at it often, so you get a really good view of it. You really feel it. And you don't have to be exact. Nobody's asking you to be an artist and visualize it, but can you get the sense of it, the feeling of it, the general visual of it, and place that symbol in that center when it's time. And that'll give your subconscious, direct access to it, and a direct knowing of what it is that you're trying to achieve. And the more you can relax, and the more you can mobilize the rest of that energy, the greater your results are going to be with that. But it just gives that sort of final, like, in the end result, this is what I'm trying to get to. Here's the definitive thing that I'm trying to do with all these other exercises.
Right.
It's nice to have that visual image, right? This is what the city of Chicago looks like from the skyline. If you're going to drive in this way, this is what you're going to see. Oh, okay. I'm not just looking at the road signs. I can see a visual image of that skyline, and I know when I get there.
Right. So we're not assuming that our subconscious knows what we're going for. We're really like trying to hone in on it specifically so that as that energy becomes mobilized in that center and we are building it up, then we know what we're saying, like this is how we want that energy to be directed. This is the experience that we're looking for.
Yeah, this is the experience that we're looking to achieve.
Right.
And it gives you help along the way if it knows exactly. That's why what do you want and why do you want it is so important, right? It gives you help toward that specific goal if it really knows what you're looking for.
Explain that.
Well, in the subconscious, whatever is held there is being worked on 24/7. It doesn't sleep, right? The subconscious never sleeps. It just goes from one moment to the next and is constantly processing. And we have more access to it when we're sleeping through dreaming or that type of thing. I mean, people will say, "Oh, I slept okay, but boy, my dreams were wild and crazy and chaotic and all of that stuff." Even if they're not lucid or you don't remember them clearly, it's your brain, your subconscious is trying to process through and give you clues symbolically. That's why it sounds so cryptic. It's trying to give you help in solving the problems that you've brought to bed with you, from that day or something, maybe a lifetime you've been dealing with, right? So it's constantly trying to give you, scenarios of how you can correct that or how to get to a state that you would prefer.
But you need to be clear about the state that you prefer.
Correct.
Because if you're just ruminating on confusion, it doesn't know what
it'll produce confusion. It's a production machine. It's a manufacturing place. So, it's a factory. Basically, it just creates. That's all it does. And so, whatever you put in there, whatever gets in there, it's going to start working on it.
Right? So it's the birthplace of our experience, but it's also the birthplace of our conscious thought as well.
Well, conscious thought, that's a different part of the mind, right?
Okay.
So that's the frontal lobes, right, that are, constantly analyzing and firing and creating and, trying to be balanced between those, although we're mostly one or the other, but we have, bits of both parts, right?
Mm-hmm. So basically, like your subconscious which is producing the phenomena of your experience, is just looking to you as the conscious mind or the conscious self to give it a direction.
Right. Factories don't produce on their own. They're waiting for orders. Right.
And it's not like it doesn't know already on its own what you want, and it doesn't. Again, it's not taking out that moralistic view or that good bad view or that you should move in this direction. I guess one of those things that you're always like bringing up. It's like there is no should for you or whatever or for anybody.
Right.
So and everybody has that full power of their subconscious mind within them that's working on the things that they're thinking about, that they're so
things don't happen to us randomly. I mean, that's where the whole idea of like there are no coincidences.
Right.
It's like, or wow,
luck.
That's so synchronistic that these things all happened at the same time. For us, that's not that big a deal. We expect it because it happens so frequently to people that, old traditions have said that this will occur. Now they might have framed it in a different way, as help from spirits or help from, gods and whatever else, right? So, but that you could influence it by the practices that you keep, right? The practices that you do on a regular basis. That was that whole idea of, can you make the connection to glean help from this, that, or the other thing? Nature, the elements, animals, like plants, right? It's like everything was here to facilitate your journey. in some way, shape, or form, right? So, and to give you a hand or to thwart you, if you were too confused or you were, you were going into places that you didn't really have a good understanding of. So, it's just a different way to frame it out. I mean, a lot of us still frame things out that way. I've been accused many times of being too anthropomorphic, giving everything life and personality and spirit and collective consciousness and things like that, right? So, but it's just the way that, and I'm not saying that it's not true. I'm just saying that it's a way that I've found to make my journey more adventurous and to get more consistent effect and to, make my time here much better. To engage it in a way that is really meaningful to me.
To engage everything in your life as a personality or a persona, or
well, because it makes you engage it differently, right? If you look, I mean, it's not such a big deal. I mean, we see it with people with their pets all the time, right? I mean, it's like once the pet is sort of established in your life and you have some time with it, right? You've given it a personality. I mean, it has ways that it does things and whatever, but most pet owners, they interpret their pet's character as a person, as a personality, right? Like, oh, look at the way she's cocking her head like that. She's thinking this, it's like, no, maybe, I don't know, but that's the way you framed it. And it makes it more engaging for us. If they were just little critters walking around the house and we were cleaning up and taking care of them, it'd be like, what a pain in the butt. It's like, for the sake of, I mean, I can buy a sheepskin, right? And pet that, and that feels just as good. It doesn't get all over me, and I don't have to feed it or take it out for a walk in the winter. But we're engaged with it, right? So it's like this really personal thing, but the reason that we get so involved with them is because we've given them personalities. So it's much easier to engage with something if it has a personality, meaning it's closer to person-like, right? So, and that's what, like in the shamanic tradition, right? It's like, that's what they do with certain animals, and that's what they do, or all animals really. That's what they do with certain plants, or all plants, right? And minerals and lakes and mountains and, things in nature. All of nature has a personality, great and small, individual and collective. So, and when we give it personalities, we engage it much differently than feeling self-conscious and going, hello, pine tree. I guess I'm here to, experience you. I don't, but if it's like, if you feel that it has a personality, it's like you go to it with, some sort of respect, or, what I always tell students that are on that path is like, approach it as if it's a person. You wouldn't walk up to a person. Like, I wouldn't walk up to you if I didn't know you and go, oh, hi, Dustin. I was supposed to be here just to, experience you. It's like, get away from me, you weirdo. What are you doing? It's like, this is like not a good thing, right? So, but as a person, I wouldn't engage you that way, really. I mean, unless, I had something going on that made me engage you that way. So normally we would walk up to somebody if we were enthralled with them or we wanted to get to know them, but it'd be like, oh, hey, I'm Brian. It's like, I heard, you're a fantastic artist, like, tell me about it. Do you have any pictures? Can you show me? It's like you engage them in a personal way. If you have time, if you're not too busy, I'd love to talk to you about this. How'd you get this color on the, it's like there's a whole conversational attitude that goes along with that. There's a respect too, right? Because you want the person not to just turn away and snub you. You want them to engage you, right? And when we do these other energetic things, we want to be engaged. We want to engage and we want to be engaged. Well, that's way easier if things have a personality. You have a lot, and I always tell people, when you get stuck, what would you do if that was a person? How would you treat them? How would you interact with them? It's a hell of a lot easier. It's just a concept in your mind, but it's a hell of a lot easier. The funny thing is, and I'm going to paraphrase this because I still am having a hard time finding the reference of who said it, but I didn't say it. I didn't make it up. It came from somebody a long time ago. It's like something like it doesn't matter if there really are, angels, demons, gods, goddesses, spirits, whatever. The universe acts as if there are.
When you engage it that way.
When you engage it that way. Right. So it's like, this is how we get along with things so much. This is how we engage things. And this is one of those little, it's not little. This is one of those things that people don't talk about. People don't write down, really. I mean, they do, but people pass over it as being just something kind of mundane and, oh, yeah. It's like, oh, treat it like, a thing, or, it's like, no, this is a this is a big one, that if you really want to engage this practice and you really want to make the most out of your practice, you'll start doing that. I mean, it'll feel funny in the beginning. There's no doubt. I mean, there are plenty of times when I'm like, not anymore, but before I started getting results, it was like, okay, I'm really self-conscious here, even though there's nobody for 10 square miles around me. And I still feel self-conscious just saying it out loud, right? Like, oh, here's the plant I'm supposed to engage with. It's like, hello, plant. I guess I'm supposed to engage. Just imagine it's a person. If you started off like that, they'd be like, oh man, this guy is slow, or whatever, or he is completely socially inept, right? It's like, the sooner I can extricate myself from this situation, the better. So, and it's the same kind of thing, right? So it's like, you do feel, I mean, we're just, because we've been trained for so long to think that they're just things. So when we think that they actually have some degree of consciousness, I mean, look at the research that's come out lately. It's friggin' it's amazing, right? It's like The Secret Life of the Forest or Trees, or whatever that book was.
I'll find the book and put it in the
link. Put it in the book, because that's a great book. That's a great book. How they find that, one tree's being, getting some kind of beetle boring into it or something, and it sends us. They didn't know how, but like when they would check, like, I mean, so quickly. Like in the middle of that same forest, another tree that's the same, and even other trees around it are starting to produce pheromones or something that will deter, or produce chemicals within their surface layer that will deter that bug. It doesn't like to eat it, or it's poison to it, or whatever, right? Like, how the hell are they doing that? Well, it's not just that their roots are touching, but they're touching all the things around them. And those things are transferring the signal, and those things are transferring. They're all connected. It's communication between these plants. And where there's gaps, there are fungal mycelia that are microscopic, that grow in between, and sort of, they're like Swiss banks among these trees, right? They store excess sugar and then feed it back to them when they need it. And it's just, it's an amazing book, to see that, it's a symbiotic relationship. And, if you really want to be part of it in a better way, start treating it as if it's no better or worse than you are. It's not different than you. It's just, you're all part of the same ecosystem. So the more you start engaging it on that level, it'll be more meaningful to you. And you'll be surprised where you get the help when you need it. It's not always apparent, but help does come. And so, I don't know, a little diversion from what we were talking about, but that's just part of it, right? It's like, and so the same thing with your subconscious. It's not like you have to treat it as a separate entity, although in the beginning, sometimes it's useful to do it that way. Conscious mind, subconscious mind. Conscious mind is sort of the analytical one, and the subconscious mind is the formative one, right? It's the one that is creative and engaging and all of those things. It sort of sees everything in the language of symbol. And so in using a symbol in the third eye or in an energy center, let's say, right, but in this case for seeing, sure,
it's like you're just speaking
You're
your
speaking its
subconscious
language. Its language, right.
But it is communication, just like you're
Absolutely,
saying.
because you've placed the emotional impact of that image that you've had,
Yeah.
with it. It goes along with it. You can't separate it out.
Right.
Right? It's like, the visual impact, the emotion that it brings on, the visceral sensation in your body, all of those things, like, wow, is that really what it could possibly look like, or even better than that? And, I've seen some that look close, but they're still not as good as the actual.
So you've seen pictures of
that, yeah,
of energy
of
or
the
whatever.
way they conceptualize it in their minds, and
but seeing it for real is
it's way different. Way different. I mean, it's you're seeing the territory and not the picture of the territory, right? Not the map of the territory.
different to be in the landscape than see a picture of it.
Exactly, right?
And yet this is how we communicate, that's how we get an idea of where we'd like to go.
Absolutely.
We see a picture of a place.
And can you imagine all of the stuff that you would have to write out to capture all the all the feeling that you would have about that, about being able to do that? I want to do this because it makes me feel like this, and the visuals are stunning, and oh my God, then there's, the ramifications of that. Everything is energy, and,
right.
It's just like, you'll be gushing for days, and,
right.
You'll have to memorize thousands of pages of text. So an image captures that, right? A picture's worth 1,000 words, right? So it's like, with that comes all the emotion that goes with that too. So it's charged already, especially if you've not just used an image that you've been given. You can be given an image, or you can find one, and we're going to give one, obviously. Not saying dismiss it, I'm just saying that it's an option for you. But sometimes a more emotionally charged image is better, until you can emotionally charge a line drawing with the understanding of what each of those things actually means, and sort of really embody that. Then it works just as well, there's no doubt. Sometimes better. Because you don't have any preconceived ideas about what it's going to actually appear like afterwards, in this case.
Right. So. And with the symbol that we're giving, this is just a traditional symbol for the third eye. Yeah. In a seeing faculty.
Right. It's just, it combines a number of different images and different geometric shapes that represent certain things. And it's just an easy way to sort of concisely formulate the idea.
It's the most simple form of, or it's the most simple linear form of a diagram or an image that represents the third eye open.
Right, and it's still a symbol.
Right.
And so you're still
it's not
you're still talking in the language of the subconscious.
Right.
So it's just you want to really map out what each of those things means to you.
Right.
Yeah. So
cool.
Yeah, that's it.
All right. So the next segment will be the guided meditation that people can listen to and go through that mobilization of the energy and placing that image in the center of the third eye and going through that process. And there'll also be a PDF that people can download of this diagram that they can use in place of one that they use for themselves, an image of what seeing would be like, or that brings on the feelings or emotions or concepts around that for them.
Exactly.
And so one of the things that we were talking about too was that everybody should experiment with both and find out which one gives them more,
which one has the most boost,
right? And then but play with them both and find out for them.
And use one for a while. Don't do it just one time. Use it for a while. I would say, if it still has legs and you're still engaging it, then I would say, a good, use it for 28, 30 days, whatever, something in that range, and then, then switch it up and try the other one. This is something that we'll do for a while. So, and it's sort of, it'll open all kinds of territories when we do other things and use the open focus for that. I mean, this one's specifically more for seeing, but the process itself is relatively the same for many other techniques that we use, right? And we're trying to establish. So, so it's not going to waste, and it's not so pinpoint that you're only going to use it for seeing.
Right. It's going to help with lots of other
way
stuff.
up. Well, yeah, lots of other stuff. Well, yeah, just I can't think of anything that it doesn't help with, to be honest with you.
Right.
So
You say that a lot.
I do. Yeah, it's like, when you have time to just do these things for extended periods, it's like you find that the simple things go the farthest. They just need consistent attention at the time, and you learn how to apply them in all kinds of flexible ways, right? We're still, I think at the heart of all of this stuff, it's from a hermetic point of view, we don't hold with any dogma. The only dogma that we have is we use what works. So that's it. And that's just sort of a loose rule, right? So, so it's, when you have time to see how flexible, these simple things are and how we can apply them in a myriad of ways, you end up with some of your favorites, and you apply them frequently and liberally and adapt on the fly. That's the thing with simple tools, is that they can be easily adapted to many scenarios, right? If it's a tool that's so complex and very specific to a certain thing, it's hard to adapt it to other things. Simple tools work.
Cool.
All right.
All right. Well, we'll get to it. Thanks.
Yeah.
Man.
Good?
Yeah, definitely.
Nice little emotional charge to that one. It's like, what? It's like, talk to the tree. Like this. The tree's trying to go like, oh, if I could move, I would pull up my roots and run away. That's what's crazy.